Consumer credit soared by a record $40.8 billion in December 2024. This debt binge comes at a time when interest rates are historically high over the last 20-ish years. Surprisingly, revolving credit card debt contracted a whopping $7.5 billion in November 2024, while non-revolving debt rose modestly. Taking a closer look at the number, while non-revolving debt student and auto loans rose modestly, as it always does, rising by $18 billion, it was credit card debt that soared by a whopping $22.3 billion, a remarkable reversal to the $14 billion drop in November, which was the biggest drop since the COVID crash shut down the economy, and the biggest monthly increase on record. The amazing thing is that interest rates on revolving debt are extremely high, with the average credit card rate at about 23%, and some as high as 29%. And of course, the interest is calculated monthly off the balance due. So if your credit card has a 20% monthly rate and there are 12 months in the year, guess what your annualized interest rate is? A whopping 240%. That's not good. Meanwhile, the saving rate has declined sharply. But why has the savings rate dropped so hard? The obvious answer is inflation everywhere you look. But that's not the whole story. Unbridled and uncontrolled consumerism is the bigger factor. Americans have been trained and molded to FOMO for the next thing constantly. Everyone wants to keep up with the Jones. Too much house. Who wants to live in the hood, right? A car you really can't afford. Nobody wants to be seen in a grocery getter. Everyone wants to roll around in style, right? My coworker took his kids to Disney, so I have to take my kids to Disney as well, right? Oh, and let's not forget the airfare to get to Disney. First class is a must, right? And of course we have to look good, dress fly, so Gucci here we come, right? Once we arrive and get settled into our fancy lodging, we will be all set, right? But then you realize you're hungry. The whole family is starving, so it's off to dinner, and fast food is for losers, so we going uptown, right? Then you realize it's getting late. Hang on, let me check my watch, it's really nice. And I can't wear a Casio watch, mine is much better, right? And one more thing. There is a new course at the local college on the history of Disney. So I must enroll, but it's cool I can just borrow that money as well, right? Here's a thought. How about just quit buying shit you really don't need? To hell with the Jones. Wouldn't you rather want to sleep good at night, not worrying about all the debt? Or maybe you thinking there is no freaking way I can do without the clout chasing. That's cool too. Here is your next debt opportunity after your credit cards are maxed out. Buy now and pay later. And no worries, because there is a solid 20+ buy now, pay later scams for you to choose from. Hell, you can buy now and pay later on all of them if that makes you happy. And to further reassure you that your consumerism is a great idea, there is always the drive through food banks. Just roll up in the fancy car you don't really need and can't afford. Pop the trunk and get some free 99 groceries. Brilliant. Then again, maybe I am full of crap and have no idea what I am talking about. So let's listen to a short clip from our friends at Bloomberg.
Philosopher Thomas Carlyle called the study of economics the dismal science. But that was before they invented shopping sprees. In fact, a great deal of the entire global economy relies on Americans emptying their wallets.
So you can't understand the American economy without understanding the consumer.
I mean, it makes up close to 70% of GDP. It could be clothes, it could be food, groceries, restaurant meals, airplane tickets. It's really any kind of good or service that Americans buy.
If you look at some of the traditional indicators, the American consumer is still holding up, right? People are still spending at a healthy pace. But if you look under the surface, things aren't looking as great anymore.
I just honestly don't know how people are making it.
This is ridiculous. It's the current economy we living in.
The prices of goods, the prices of food, they're never going down again.
Is the American consumer tapped out? It's really complicated.
To understand where we are today, we need to go back to what feels like 100 years ago.
There was, March 2020, the global economy sort of shut down. Governments responded. They pumped a bunch of money into the economy. Nobody was traveling. People were barely eating out. At the same time, a lot of people who were able to work from home, they didn't lose their jobs. They continued to earn money, but were just spending less. People's bank accounts really got bigger and bigger.
And once COVID-19 restrictions started to ease, the world returned to normal, consumers, went on a splurge. They started revenge spending. People wanted to travel. People were buying luxury goods. People were going out to eat expensive meals.
But this too shall pass, and the all-American shopping spree is no exception.
The pandemic savings are largely gone, so that cushion that consumers had for a long time is no longer there.
Credit challenges have intensified. Our borrower is struggling with high inflation.
Wider concerns about inflation.
Why did we have this inflation?
Inflation has for sure been the biggest economic story of the past few years.
By 2022, inflation hit 9.1%, a high not seen since 1981.
If you have to go take a trip, that flight is more expensive. The hotel prices are up. The grocery bill is expensive. Your car payments are expensive. Your housing payments are expensive. So inflation has really taken its toll.
And even though inflation has started receding recently, that doesn't mean prices are falling. That only means prices are rising less fast. So for consumers, that means that they're having to make choices.
Businesses are now reacting to some of the tough choices consumers have to make.
If McDonald's starts to see a sales slowdown, that's an indicator that people are saying, you know what, I'm going to make lunch at home today.
As a way to draw back customers, they've started to offer value deals. Americans are stretched thin, and if they can eat out, they're looking for a cheaper option.
McDonald's and Starbucks are talking about a more price-sensitive customer. That is the kind of thing that starts to become maybe a canary in the coal mine.
Speaking of canaries in coal mines, let's talk about debt.
Right now, all told, Americans are holding on to more than $17 trillion of debt. And we're finally starting to see Americans fall behind on mortgages, personal loans, auto loans, student debt, and credit card debt.
And of course, with interest rates high, people are paying a lot on those credit card balances. So if you're sort of buried under credit card debt, that is going to impact your ability to spend out in the economy.
But wait, there's more. More debt, that is. You know how the universe has dark matter? Well, the American economy has kind of its own version of that, called phantom debt.
So there's $17.8 trillion of debt that we can see. What some experts are even more scared about is the debt that we can't see, this phantom debt lurking in the economy that could be hiding consumer distress.
The concept of phantom debt is centered around the buy now, pay later services that have been popping up on all of our online purchases lately.
Buy now, pay later is sort of part of the fintech world. It's sort of a new spin on an old idea. If you think about layaway, you can buy this product now. Instead of paying the $100 now, you can pay in 4 installments.
Buy now, pay later services have become ubiquitous, and we've started seeing people use buy now, pay later options for groceries to get by and put food on the table.
One of the challenges with buy now, pay later is that there's a bit of an opaqueness to it.
It's a total black box. They don't report to credit bureaus in the way that, credit cards have to.
It's an unknown, which, obviously economists don't like.
Actually, let me just check my notes really quick. I think I had some stats here. So just to pull together some numbers for you, some estimate that buy now, pay later services backstopped about $75 billion in online purchases alone. Others project that the buy now, pay later market could reach $700 billion globally by 2028.
Increasingly relying on credit and falling into debt is an indicator that Americans aren't making enough money. Which makes sense, considering wage growth has been slowing down for most of the past 2 years, barely keeping up with inflation.
Longer term, wages just have not kept up with the cost of living.
There's this new study from JP Morgan that shows that for lower income consumers, it's becoming harder and harder to pay their bills.
We know that these people, when they have a medical problem, it can send them into bankruptcy.
The pain is not reserved exclusively for Americans in the lowest rung of the economy either. While Americans who own homes or have invested in stocks have helped sustain consumer spending, reports have also shown that an alarming number of households with incomes of up to $250,000 a year are now living paycheck to paycheck.
The idea in the US was always that if you worked hard, went to college, you were going to do better than your parents, right? That was sort of the story of the post-World War II era with the baby boomers. And I think that the lifestyle that people think that they're entitled to has gotten more expensive. And I think that does create a lot of pessimism about the economy.
Rising costs, lower wage growth, and unsustainable debt, both known and phantom, add up to quite the triple threat for American consumers of every class. Amid all that doom and gloom, you may be wondering if there's a silver lining. There is one. The Federal Reserve started cutting interest rates in September after leaving them at a 2-decade high for more than a year.
There is hope that lower interest rates will be good for regular people.
So far, a lot of experts think that the Federal Reserve will be able to nail a soft landing, but there is still some pain and there will be more pain to come.
Perhaps it's time to wake up, live within your means, reject the consumerism. Affirm to the world you don't care what Mr. and Mrs. Jones are doing or where they dine, vacation, what they wear or drive, because living debt-free is priceless and true freedom. As always, you decide. Would you rather stress over your debt but you look rich, or would you rather live within your means, whatever that looks like, and sleep like a baby without a financial gun pointed at you? Thanks for watching.